I was in the same boat. I had never thought of McDonald's as the target of sit-in activities or anti-segregation protests. I always thought it was Woolworth's lunch counters, like we see those iconic photos from companies that we really don't have anymore, like Cress's Drugs, Rexall. So I thought it was just an old school kind of businesses. But when I started doing my research, I was looking at the work of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that developed out of the sit-ins in 1960, and McDonald's is one of their targets. And McDonald's is a serious target for SNCC because they're seeing the expansion of the franchise model throughout the South. And so McDonald's restaurants throughout North Carolina, in Memphis, Tennessee, and Pine Bluff, Arkansas, they are places where Black civil rights organizations are protesting, and they're saying you're segregating customers, or you're having these policies where, all the white customers have to be served first before Black people's orders could be taken. A lot of these restaurants didn't have like eat-in facilities. You had to drive your car in. So even in a model where people aren't even sitting next to each other, you still see the use of segregation policies to try to keep people in their place. And I had never, ever, ever in my many years of, studying the civil rights movement had ever seen McDonald's as a target. But once I started looking for it, it became clear to me, of course, it would be a target because it was one of many businesses that was expanding throughout the 1950s and prior to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yeah, it blew my mind because I was sitting there like, no, I forget. You don't think about that, but it is right there in that moment. And it's blowing up right then because McDonald's obviously in the 50s is starting to take off, and then Ray Kroc comes in, the one of the ultimate. If you see in the movie, the founder, he becomes
Mhm.
the whole founder of the McDonald's. But talk to us specifically about Pine Bluff because that one it seems like you highlighted a lot. Can you talk about just the violence and just the overall results from that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that's also important to remember that these protests against segregation wasn't just about people kind of, sitting in a seat. It was making themselves targets of violence. The Pine Bluff, Arkansas movement had been organized partially by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the local NAACP, and they claimed that Black Muslims were involved in that protest. I'm not entirely sure that was accurate, but that's what people were saying. And so in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, a group of students from Arkansas Agricultural and Technical College, they start to protest the segregation policies of McDonald's. And on one July 4th weekend, when they do this protest, people go inside of the restaurant to try to order to see if they'll get served. And they're essentially locked, chained into that restaurant. And they see that they've turned off all of the air conditioning, they've made it really, really hot. And then when the police finally open the doors, they're arresting people, they're beating people. Someone threw acid in a woman's face. This is how high stakes this stuff is. And so from my perspective, I think it's really important to try to ask the question, how has McDonald's been written out of that history, right? Like we know these companies that were targets of segregation that continue to exist even, after the end of the protest. But why is it that we never make this association with McDonald's in light of the fact that such dramatic and violent protests happened at the site of one of its restaurants?
If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookupapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.